Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev Briz and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the new thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And good morning, dear ones. Rev Briz over here.
Rev Z right here.
And we're a couple of ministers talking shit, which means it must be Friday morning here on the New Thought Media Network. We come to you every Friday morning, 7 a.m. And really, as our promo says, we talk about whatever old stuff we want to talk about. Did I just miss a chance to say that word?
Yeah, you did. But, I never say it, so it's all good.
Yeah, exactly. It's my job to say that word on this show, folks. So welcome to Friday morning. Z, who put the Groundhog in charge?
I'm not sure, but I'm thinking we need to put him in a zoo and get rid of this 6 more weeks of winter thing, because it is cold, and double cold.
Absolutely. I'm going to apologize to everyone that lives in Colorado, because I was the one last week going, what? There's no snow. It's warm. Everywhere else in the country's getting snow. Why don't we get any snow anymore? And while I didn't get much snow in the backyard, man, the temperatures plummeted overnight pretty hard around here. So
yeah. And Valentine's Day, we're going to have a frozen Valentine's Day here. The forecast, the high is 9, and I think the low is -3 or -5 or something like that coming up for, that's the range that they're predicting right now. So it is, and it's all over the country. They got minus degrees, I think, all the way down in Texas.
Oh, yeah. Texas, they don't even know what a minus before the number means, really. I mean, they never see that.
No. So, obviously the question is going to be raised, I think, in the next couple of days after this goes, because this cold front is going to be here for at least until after President's Day, right? So we're looking at now a 4 or 5 day event that's covering probably 3/4 of the country, right, in temperatures that are real low. So again, the global warming question is going to come up, I'm sure, because I was watching the news and they were saying that these temperatures down in Texas and Louisiana and over in Oklahoma, I mean, they're going to break records that were never set, Right. So it's going to be interesting how that flows. And then when you look at the work by the current administration in terms of how we're dealing with global warming, and he has a whole commission to look at this thing, and got back into the Paris Peace Accord and starting to look at those things. I mean, we can't rely on the groundhog to help predict this weather here. We need to get a handle on this thing and work to figure it out.
Yeah. It's only been a few years since I first heard the term polar vortex, and now this one they're calling a polar pulse. And you're right, groundhogs don't have the technology and never quite did. And but there is an even better analogy here, because sometimes it does feel like, well, here we go again, doing the same old thing the same old way again. There's all kinds of interesting stories we've bumped into this week. Kyle Rittenhouse is still free on bail in Illinois and Wisconsin. There's a Montessori school in Utah that is backpedaling from a huge mistake. I don't understand this one. So I want to run this one by you. A Montessori school in Utah put forth a form that allowed the parents of their school. Now, this is a free public elementary and junior high school that is funded by taxpayer dollars. It's a charter school. and they put out an opt-out form for parents to opt out of Black History Month curriculum at their school. Now, it didn't take long for that to hit the national news, and they've backpedaled, and the board's made a statement, and we value this. And okay, if you really do value Black history, how does it even get past the board to put out an opt-out form, let alone have to backpedal from it a week later? Now, I guess I have an affinity for this story because I lived in Utah for quite a while, and I know where Orem, Utah is, and I know how white it is.
Right.
And man, if there is ever a place that needs to learn Black history, I think it's a place like Orem, Utah, with 94% white population in that school. But now you can still just say, I don't feel like that. I don't want, and it's not even right. It's the parents. I don't want my kids learning that.
Right. And you know that as they say, that really hurts my heart because both of my youngest kids went from kindergarten or pre-kindergarten through 6th grade at Montessori school, public charter. And when you go and look at Maria Montessori and you look at her model of teaching, which was an excellent and still is obviously an excellent model. The whole model was based on historical context and working on the land, right? So real traditional Montessori school, they will have a farm. And so you go out and you deal with the earth and planting and animals. So you get that understanding of nature. And then it was historical based. So the evidence of learning, if you will, was based on history. And from that standpoint of history, you can look at any other subject, sociology, math, science, based in history. So you had a holistic view. So to take Black history out of that, right, would be ludicrous. I mean, it'd be totally against what Maria Montessori came up with in terms of that. So it just shows again that the groundhog, if you will, about taking a pulse of where things are, whether it's the, Puxatawny Bill trying to do the weather, or you come up with some other groundhog name to figure out how we are in relationships and teaching true history and allowing people to begin to get the truth to make real decisions in life. It's being controlled by, God knows who, God knows what. Right. And that's a problem.
Yeah. It's it's striking me as we're chatting here that there's been this Black History Month, which started as a week, right? Which was nothing, and now here we are, and it's almost as if what I'm seeing is the pendulum starting to swing back. Are people starting to say, yeah, it's February, of course it's like it's almost we're becoming a little blasé and not giving this such a needed experience in our country. We're starting to gloss over it. It seems like I haven't seen a greeting card yet that says Happy Black History Month, but somebody's probably printing one right now that we said it, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the key thing, I think. When you look at we in this country, we have all these different months of celebration. All right, there's Black History Month, then there's Hispanic History Month, and then there's Women History Months, and just the idea. I mean, when you think about it, the idea that we've done such a poor job as a country to honor different cultures and show how they've integrated and supported this country in itself, to me, says, how serious are we? I mean, we should be teaching Black history every day, right? We should be teaching Hispanic and women's history and all these things every day, wherever they apply, whatever field of study you're in, because that's when you begin to get a holistic view. One of the key points of diversity and inclusion is when you're sitting at the table making decisions, you have the different points of view. That was part of the past administration's point of view. You had Trump and his supporting cast, if you will, who came from a pretty narrow upbringing in terms of economics, education, access, They had no idea what it means to be in the hood, if you will, in any city in America, or what it means to be in a rural town in some small place anywhere. So they can't project their perspectives, their concerns into the conversation. So they just get overlooked and used.
Right. It's again, as we're sitting here sparking, you're sparking all kind. Oh, bing, bing, bing. Right. Here we are again. We're doing the Groundhog thing, going right back over and living the same day, the same experience, and I'm concerned, right? Joe Biden and this new presidential administration, they're going to come in and they're going to do what they feel is their mandate, and they're going to do what they've promised people they're going to do, and in 4 years, are we going to be sitting here going, okay, man, damn, nothing. It seems like, I say this a lot, the work of cultural change is long. Yeah. The arc of cultural change is very, very long. You got to get our hands dirty, and we often get a bit dirty doing that work.
Yeah. And that's the thing, you'll always hear golfers, they'll make the reference to say, you can be a great putter, but if you don't have a long game, if you can't get from the tee to the hole, I don't care how good of a putter you are, you're never going to make par or get a good score in the game because you have no long game. And that's what we have to begin to look at, is what's the long game? Because we always come up with these quick fixes. Whoever makes the loudest noise, we drop something down, but is it systemic? I mean, we got systemic racism, but do we have systemic solutions to unrid ourselves, if you will, of those kinds of things across the board? It's not just in race and diversity. It's in global warming or climate change or economic, and how we do that. Right now, just thinking about the whole GameStop thing, there are a lot of investigations going on now about manipulation of the market on how that GameStop thing came off and how it played. I mean, unfortunately, I heard a story that was really disheartening. There was a 20-year-old young man who actually committed suicide because he got he'd run up, according to them being Robin Hood, $750 million, or $750,000 rather, of debt, and nobody would answer the phone to figure out if this was true or not. And so this young kid, 20, said, I can't pay $750,000.
Right. Yep. It's greed. It still sometimes appears as if greed is winning. And we talked about GameStop last week, the week before, and I'm still in that place where I'm in awe that, one, this happens, right? That we have set up a system whereby this stuff can happen.
Yes.
Number two, the people that set up the system are very upset that other people figured out their system, which in my mind generally means you're cheating, but it's left to be seen. I can't say that for sure. But more importantly, what it points to me is that on an individual level, individual people are crying out for change in this country, are begging for it in so many different ways. Racially, on Wall Street, schooling, what other, let's not even start with healthcare, because there's just so many that whole system. But one by one, we're starting to see the average, I hate the word average, but we're starting to see everyday people stand up and say, okay, I've had enough. Right. And if this is the one way I can get involved, I'm going to get involved in this one way.
Well, and again, the old groundhog, right? And no matter what system, the groundhog has come up and say, are we going to have 6 more weeks, if you will, of the same political rhetoric, or the same disallowing of the populace to get valid health care? I mean, it's the same question put in different vernaculars of, are we going to really begin to do the hard work? And as they said, during the early part, are we going to follow the science, whether it's the science of weather, the science of economics, the science of public health? Pick a science that we're going to look at in terms of trying to turn around the perspective of how we engage each other and the world. Because right now we are in, I use the reference a lot now. It is the best of times and it is the worst of times. We're in a pivotal point right now where we can catapult ourselves forward into some really, really nice place, right? If people really realize where we are and the opportunity we have now, or we can go backwards and wind up in some place that we can't even recognize. And I say we go forward and we begin to respect each other and trust the science, build relationships, and tell the groundhog, go do what you do somewhere else. We will respect you too, but we're gonna take over where we take over, and we're gonna let you do what it is you do.
Time for you to retire, Phil. You've done a lot of good work over the years. Here's a gold watch and an extra bag of nuts. Good luck, right? Yes. But okay, so yes, I absolutely agree with you. I think that a move towards it, and it feels to me like, how did we lose that? Weren't we a science-based or culture? Hadn't we already gotten there? And
yes.
So again, the pendulum slips back and the pendulum has to swing back again. And we're going to experience these fluctuations in life. It's as ministers, it's tough, folks, right? It's all too easy to judge people and make other people wrong. And the minute we do that, that just gives permission for everybody else to start judging us and making us wrong.
Yeah,
we've got to stay in that place of, okay, I may not like the behavior, but I got to recognize that the people that put these systems in place believed they were under a mandate to do something. And now it's up to the people to provide a new mandate. It's up to us to voice what we want and say, this is the kind of world I want to live in, where you don't get to shoot people and run free, where you don't, where you can't just say, we're opting out of that because, it's all good. We don't have any black kids in our school anyway, so why do we got to do black kids? It's moving into that place that says, man, I want to be a part of something.
Yeah. And that's I use the reference frequently that says we may have come over here in different boats, but we all in the same ship now, right? And so we are in this country, and they say we are the most powerful nation in the world, which means we have, if that's true, and we're going to take that mantle, then we have a leadership position and an obligation to be an example of what life could be or what life should be. And when we behave the way we behaved in terms of disregarding science, in terms of the virus, in terms of the weather, in terms of the political climate that we were in, and we have people storming the Capitol, and now that they're having the trial, right, we're beginning to see some of the videos and get a better understanding of what went down that day. And it was kind of close to being some really, really crazy stuff going on, right? And so, excuse me. So, go ahead.
I heard one last night that Senator Mitch Romney wasn't actually in the chamber. He was on a phone call and he was in the hallways and he was just walking around on the phone and almost walked right into the whole thing, like almost walked into the whole mass of people that were roaming the halls looking for Senator and other people. That things got weird there, dude.
Yeah, they got weird. And so when we So now imagine the position we're going to be in as supposedly the moral leader, the economic leader, the democratic leader of the free world, as they say, going to some smaller country or some developing country trying to give dictates of how you should lead your life or how you should run your government or how you should treat your citizens. They're going to look at us and say, I don't think so. What I saw and what I'm seeing now is not what I want. So,
right.
so that whole idea of a spiritual renewal, and part of the whole spirituality thing is, from my perspective and study and understanding, is how do we understand and respect all life and allow it to work together in this integral way, the way it did millennia before we got on the planet.
Right. All right. I think we got just enough time to cover because you reminded me of something else. That's what I love about this show. So my family and I are out for a dog walk the other night. We take a different route than we normally do. And I'm going to tell you right now, we're probably never going to take that route again. Because halfway down this one block, there's a house, and they got these big flags out front. And they got Trump's name on them. But these aren't leftovers. And the number on it says 2024. And the tagline says, it wasn't making America great again, but it was something to that effect, right? It was like, that's all right. We're not going. Basically, the message I got is, we're not going anywhere. The hell with you. We'll be back.
Yeah.
And I tell you, there's a part of me that wanted to be very upset. And there was a part of me that wanted to go over and knock on that door and say, how dare you? How dare you risk the economic future of this country? How dare you risk the moral future of this country? How dare you risk this country by putting up a flag like that? Now, my family and my kids are like, don't look, don't look, don't look. And I've been trying to be with that for the last few days, because there's also a part of me that wants to go knock on the door and say, can I buy you a cup of coffee? Can we go out to lunch? I promise I'm not armed. I promise I'm not here to try to get you. I'm not going to film it. But there's something in me that's got to know. Because it seems like such an unknown after what we saw, and more proof with this impeachment trial I was sharing with you earlier. There's a couple of videos I saw last night by major news organizations that follow certain people through the photographic evidence, through the video evidence of the insurrection, that follow specific people and organizations and where they were at what times. And from what I saw, there's pretty much no question that the Proud Boys were front and center at every major junction of that event. As a country, how do we approach an organization and a group that seems bent on our destruction?
Yeah. Well, I think, as we put this spiritual spin on it, as we normally try to do at the end of these information gathering sessions, if you will, is I think, from my perspective, my tagline is educate, conversate, and activate. We have to begin to educate ourselves first, and then help educate others, or give them the opportunity to educate themselves, because we can't force anything on them. But we have to create that environment. We have to provide information and some evidence, if you will, of where things are and how we change them, and how some of these activities and behaviors are being enacted based on false information. Now, because some of this, when you look at some of the diversity and racial divides, it goes all the way back to slavery, at least for blacks anyway, where they used the Bible to justify black people being in the position they were. And then they continued to perpetrate that with the story of Ham. I mean, there's several of those stories in there, right? That they used to state that blacks were 3/5 of a man, or that they were actually property, like chattel slavery. People say, oh, there was slavery everywhere. Yeah, but it wasn't chattel slavery, no matter where you find it in antiquity. And so we have to begin to erase that idea and begin to say, look, we are all, if I'm on an operating table and you have O positive blood and I'm O positive, I'm not really concerned what your racial evidence. If it's good blood, I want it, right? That's how close we are in proximity to each other, regardless of race, creed, color, and all of that.
Just so long as you haven't been eating too much bacon, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, we're good.
Exactly. And so we have to begin to look at, again, the science. Let's look at, we know that climate change, if you will, back in ancient times, dictated racial stock, whether you lived in a place that was hot or a place that was cold. Over time, it began to take the body adjusted or adapted to the conditions it was in so that it could survive, which shows the inherent godness in each and every one of us. So that's why I think we have to begin to go.
Yeah. Oh, so much work to be done, folks. And the truth is, and what I always fall back on is, yes, there's a lot to be done. And yes, there's a lot of us here that can do this work. There are a lot of us that are being called to something different. And, as New Thought ministers, we've probably had this conversation a million times. Why are we not more spread? How do we get in more people's home? How do we get more people to know what we believe and what we're teaching and how this philosophy and all that? And I believe a big part of it is by being really real, by being authentic. And that is where we are today. We have been led to a point where I believe the New Thought philosophy, my mind wants to say, is the savior here, but we don't need any saving. But it is the philosophy that can lead us and guide us as humanity, as a race, as a people, as a planet, into the coming changes and into the coming millennia, and healing our race-based hatred and violence, coming to a deeper understanding of true oneness, recognizing that, yes, our planet is going through changes as well, and relying on the science. We've got work in front of us, and what we know is there are plenty of us here to make that happen. And again, regardless of skin color. So we want to put out a quick shout out before we run out of time here today. In 2 weeks time from today, which I believe is the 26th of February, we're going to do not a Black History Month, but Blacks Making History episode. And what we'd love for you to do is let us know now we're doing our homework too, and we're going to bring some stories, but we'd like you to share with us your stories. Where have you seen people of color making history so far this year? Where can we point to people that are making the change? Yeah. Now, I'm sure if we did this for us lighter hued folks, we'd spend hours and hours finding those stories. It's sometimes a little bit tougher to find the stories of our family of color to point those out. We want to highlight those on the 23rd. So send us an email, ministertalk@ntmedia.org. Let us know how you're doing. Let us know what you'd like to hear us talking about. Let us know how cold it is where you are. Shout out to Terry Paul Choice at the beginning of the show. She mentioned it's cold in Canada too, eh? So we're with you, Terry. Don't you know? So, that's about as much Canadian as I know, eh? Sorry, I was being silly. But so please send us an email. Let us know what we can do to make this show more valuable for you, and share with us stories that we can focus in on for the our last Friday of February, where we're going to focus on Black History Month completely in total.
Yep.
So, Z, before we get out of here, what needs to be said to make this conversation feel a little more complete?
I think we need to not rely on the groundhog anymore for our important decisions. And as always, I mean, this phrase is never going to get old. We got to continue to educate ourselves and begin, as you said, to go to our neighbor and have conversations, buy some coffee. Let's try to get some common ground. And then once we do that, let's activate that and put it in practice in our communities, in our nation, in our world, so that we can begin to truly have that world that works for everyone.
Amen. 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 I love it. All right, folks. That's all we've got time for today. This is Ministers Talking Shit on the New Thought Media Network. Please stay tuned. 8:15 a.m. we have our morning prayers coming up. And at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, we have our Heart of Peace meditation. And also this evening at 6 o'clock, the Fireside Chat, Friday Fireside Chat with Pastor Michael Mangus. So thanks for being with us. We'll be back again next week. Until then, peace and blessings.
Peace and blessing.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.